Imagine you're walking deep into a mountain. The deeper you go, the darker and colder it becomes. You can't see anything except what your small headlamp shows. Around you, it's quiet. Too quiet. Now imagine you're over 3,000 feet below the surface, and suddenly, you see something terrifying hanging from a rope. A human body, lifeless and alone. This is not a movie. It's a real story. In August 2021, a group of expert Russian cave explorers were moving deep inside Veryovkina Cave, the deepest known cave in the world. As they moved downward, they came across a shocking scene. A dead man hanging silently in the darkness, with bags still attached to his body. His name was Sergey KV. Why was he there alone? What pushed him into such danger? How did his journey turn into a tragedy? And what was in those final moments, when he knew he couldn't escape? This is the true and emotional story of a man who dared to explore the Earth's darkest place, and never came back. Sergey KV was a 37-year-old man living in Sochi, Russia. He was a father and husband, and he loved doing tough things like running, hiking, and exploring. But in 2020, he became deeply interested in something new. Veryovkina Cave. This cave is special. It's not just deep. It's the deepest cave on Earth, going over 1.3 miles, more than 7,200 feet, straight down into the Earth. At the very bottom, there are narrow tunnels, water-filled paths, and strange underground chambers that hardly any human has seen. Even though Sergey had only done caving 2 times before, he became obsessed with this dangerous cave. He started searching online, reading stories, watching videos, looking at maps, and collecting everything he could about it. He even focused on one scary event that had happened there in the past. But instead of warning him, it made him want to go even more. Sergey made a secret plan. He told his family only that he was going on a short trip to find the meaning of life. He said he'd be back in about a week, but he didn't tell them where he was going. On November 1st, 2020, he drove for hours until he reached the entrance of Veryovkina Cave. Just getting there was tough. It involved hiking up a mountain. He wore new climbing crampons and used trekking poles to reach the cave mouth. At the entrance, he switched his gear from a cloth backpack into waterproof bags. Then, he set up a rope to rappel into the cave and left his normal bag behind. But he made many serious mistakes. He had no waterproof clothes. He didn't have permission to enter the cave. He planned to use equipment and camps that belonged to professional teams, even though they weren't meant for outsiders. While other teams brought communication tools, backup supplies, and proper climbing gear, Sergey only had what he could carry on his back. He thought he was prepared for the cave. He wasn't. It was to crawl through tight, narrow tunnels that went down for over 1,200 feet. It was difficult and tiring, especially with his heavy bags. Finally, he reached Camp 1, set up by professionals at a depth of 1,250 feet. From here, he faced a terrifying section called Babat, a vertical drop of 500 feet with no ledges or breaks. Luckily, ropes were already in place. Sergey planned his trip carefully. According to his notes, it would take about 6 hours to go down to the bottom of the Babat shaft. Coming back up, he guessed, would take 2 hours longer. He left some of his gear at Camp 1 and prepared for the huge drop. Unlike expert teams who used bright lights to light up the whole space, Sergey had only a headlamp. He lowered himself down into the black pit. Despite the risk, he managed to reach the bottom. Just a bit farther down, Sergey reached Camp 2, around 2,000 feet deep. This camp had a tent, gas stove, and some stored food. Here, something went very wrong. It seems Sergey forgot a crucial piece of climbing equipment, the foot stirrups needed to help him climb back up the long vertical shaft. Climbing back up without these stirrups is almost impossible. You need to use your feet to push your body upward while pulling with your hands. Using only your hands to climb 500 feet is more than most people can do. Sergey stayed at Camp 2 for 6 or 7 days, trying again and again to climb up. He must have felt terrified and desperate. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make it. He was trapped, and no one knew he was there. Going even deeper in hope. As his food ran out, Sergey had to make a decision: stay and starve, or go deeper in hope of finding help or supplies. His map showed another camp below. He likely believed that maybe he could find more food or better gear there. So, even though he was weak and tired, he kept going. From Camp 2 to Camp 3 was a hard journey, even for trained teams. Sergey was alone, hungry, and cold. But he reached Camp 3, over 3,300 feet down. Sadly, the camp had nothing useful. No food, no equipment that could save him. But Sergey didn't stop. Even though he was nearly out of strength, he looked at his map again. It showed one more camp, deeper still, about 1,000 feet below. At this extreme depth, water was everywhere, not just as drips, but as full-on sprays and waterfalls. The cave had 100% humidity, so nothing ever dried. Sergey wore cotton overalls, which got soaked quickly. He needed a dry suit, but didn't have one. Without a warm stove or food, he had to keep moving to avoid freezing. The cave temperature was about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius. Slowly and painfully, he lowered himself into the final part of the cave. Somewhere around 3,600 feet, he likely collapsed from hypothermia. His body temperature dropped too low. No one knows exactly how he died, but it's clear he reached the end of his strength. Back at home, Sergey's wife waited. He had said he'd be back in a week, but after days passed, she grew worried. When she told the police, she had no idea he'd gone to Veryovkina Cave. Sergey hadn't left any record or permit. No one could guess where he had disappeared. 9 months later, in August 2021, the Russian Perovo Speleo team returned to the cave. At the entrance, they saw a rope hanging oddly. That was strange. It could give other people the wrong idea that the cave was set up for safe climbing. As they went down, they saw more strange things: trekking poles, crampons, an old backpack, and open food boxes at Camp 1. Then, at a depth of 3,600 feet, their lights caught a terrifying sight: a body hanging from their ropes with bags below. It had been there for months. The man was Sergey KV. Finally, after 9 long months, Sergey's wife got her answer. She was heartbroken, but at least she knew the truth. That was the tragic story of Sergey. But Floyd Collins? Trapped 17 days in a cave. His ending was even darker. Hit that subscribe button. The next story might change the way you see the world.